What's a parasite like you doing here? Get out right now or I'm calling the police. The sentence hit me like a glass of cold water. In the living room, where the fireplace threw a gentle amber glow across the floorboards. My younger sister by blood and by years of entitlement. Celeste Hayes let those words drip from her wine-stained lips. The glass in her hand, delicate and expensive, was one I'd gifted her the previous Christmas. Inside, a deep red vintage swirled lazily. One of the bottles I'd been saving in my Mountain Lodge cellar, a bottle worth several $1,000s, now riding the rim of her mouth like lipstick. My name is Amelia Hart. I'm 38. I built my real estate business with a clear head and stubborn hands, and these days, I no longer wake up doing math on the edge of panic. At work, I'm practical, almost painfully so. I read contracts the way meteorologists read radar and make decisions like someone who's had to live with each one. This lodge in the Colorado mountains has always been my sanctuary, a place I designed to hold quiet like a cup holds water. And on this particular night, Christmas Eve, it was supposed to hold everything I'd been starving for. A blanket, cocoa, a movie, the hush of snow, the kind of silence that settles into your bones and reminds you why you worked so hard in the first place. I told no one I was coming. I'd cleared a rare overdue holiday, then shut the office door and the city behind me. The road up was a ribbon of black through drifts of white, my tires ticking over memory. Weekends spent staining the deck, patching roof shingles, choosing the perfect iron latch for the pantry door. Then, as the lodge came into view, I saw the first crack in the picture. Parked in the guest spot was Celeste's white luxury SUV, the one I was still making payments on because she'd cried the day she asked. Beside it sat a snow-dusted sedan. I recognized from photos as belonging to Noah's parents. A cold coil of dread tightened under my ribs. Yes, I'd given Celeste the code to the keybox by the front door, but for emergencies only. A burst pipe, a blown fuse during a storm. Not this. Never this. I climbed the steps and rested a hand on the oak door. It wasn't locked. I pushed it open, and it wasn't just the heat that met me, but the cramped, chaotic pressure of other people's lives. Music thumped, laughter tangled. The air was thick with sweat and gravy and the stale, sour edge of a party 2 days past its peak. In the living room were Celeste and her husband, Noah, along with his parents and siblings. 7 people in total, every one of them settled into the furniture like cats that had discovered the sunniest patches. The coffee table was a battlefield of dry turkey bones, dulled carving knives, and empty champagne bottles rolling toward the rug. Ridiculous Christmas sweaters were everywhere, coats draped over chairbacks and the arm of my leather sofa. The fireplace mantel broke my heart. The framed photo of our parents, the one with the wind in my mother's hair and the light in my father's eyes, had been shouldered to the side, nearly hidden. In its place was a large, glossy portrait of Noah's family, all teeth and matching crimson sweaters. It wasn't a party, it was an occupation. They didn't notice me at first. It was Noah, sprawled with his ankles crossed on my coffee table, who pointed toward the door. The music cut mid-beat. His mother stood, smoothing the hem of her sweater. "Oh, you must be Amelia. You're back earlier than Noah said. How was your trip?" "Trip?" I asked, though the answer was already crawling under my skin. Celeste came slicing out of the kitchen, a wine glass at her fingers. She saw me, and her face twisted, not with surprise, but with an annoyance like a cat interrupted mid-pounce. She filled the air with her breath and her contempt and spat the line that opened this story. "You can call the police," I said evenly, "but you'll be inviting them to remove you." Confusion flickered across Noah's parents' faces. "Celeste, how could you speak to your sister like that?" Noah's mother asked, scandalized. "After she lets you use her lodge?" The lie was suddenly simple, obvious. Celeste and Noah had told them I was away on business overseas for weeks and had generously offered them my home for the holidays. They'd woven the fantasy so tightly, even their own parents were wrapped in it. "I don't recall lending the lodge to anyone," I said, my voice quiet but sharp enough to carry. "And I didn't go on a trip. This is my house. Heads turned toward Noah. He went pale the way men do when the cards are laid face up. This is my house, I repeated, stepping deeper into the room. And your presence here is trespassing. Celeste's mouth curled. You're unbelievable, she snapped, reaching for her phone. Fine. I'll tell the police a stalker broke in and tried to ruin our Christmas. She stabbed at the screen. The room fell into a tense, artificial hush. 20 minutes later, the glow of red and blue lights slid over the snow outside like fever through a patient. I opened the door to two officers who stood square in their boots, weariness on their faces, and competence in their hands. Ma'am? The taller one said, eyes sweeping the clutter and the people and the family photo on my mantel. We got a report of a disturbance. Can someone tell us what's going on? It's her, Celeste said, pitching her voice high. She barged in. She's harassing us. She's obsessed. She's my sister, I said. And this is my residence. They entered without permission. Puzzled looks. Then Celeste's voice again, shriller. That's a lie. This is our place. I set my briefcase on the console and opened it with calm hands. Deed, property tax statements, insurance, my driver's license. I passed each to the officer, who angled them beneath his flashlight and read with the careful patience of someone who likes to get things right. Those are fake, Celeste hissed. No one believed her. After a moment, the officer's expression settled into something solid. He handed the documents back. Ma'am, he said to me, these look legitimate. Then to Celeste and Noah, if this is Miss Hart's property and you don't have her permission, you're here unlawfully. Under Colorado law, that can be criminal trespass. Color drained from Celeste's face. Noah's mother collapsed onto the sofa, white-knuckled. Oh my goodness, she whispered. We were deceived by our own son. She looked up with damp, mortified eyes. I'm so sorry. I accept your apology, I said. But it changes nothing. This is my private home. You moved furniture. You replaced photos. You drank my wine and called me a parasite. I want all of you out, tonight. Because we're family, we should be allowed to use it, Celeste blurted, desperation edging into her voice. We're sisters. The officer shook his head slowly. Family ties don't override property rights. Miss Hart, do you want them escorted out? Yes, I said. Please. The officers nodded. Bags rustled. Coats were snatched from the sofa. A dozen miserable, petty movements filled the room like gnats. While they fumbled, I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. The pale light fell across my face like a mask. The room paused, a collective flinch of attention. First, I said, voice steady, the apartment you live in, Celeste. One of my holdings. Market rent is $2,500 per month. You've been paying maintenance only, as a kindness. My last promise to our mother. I tapped a button. The app chimed politely. That arrangement ends tonight. Celeste's grip slipped. A small ornament dropped from her hand and shattered on the rug. You can't be serious, she whispered. I lifted my gaze to Noah's parents. The comfortable apartment you're in now? I found it for you myself. No commission, and I signed as guarantor to secure the lease. I did it because I believed stability for you would help your son find his feet. They looked at their laps. The SUV parked outside, I went on. Celeste cried and said it was necessary for hospital visits and groceries. I made the down payment and covered the note. Another tap, another soft chime. Tomorrow morning, I'll instruct the finance company to repossess. No, Noah said, panic slipping past his bravado. That car is mine, I said flatly. On paper and now, in fact. I locked my phone and slid it away. When I met Celeste's eyes, there was no anger there anymore, only fear. The money I've paid on your behalf over the years is well north of $50,000, I said. That tally stops here. She opened her mouth, closed it, and opened it again. Noah was silent as timber. His parents began collecting Tupperware and scarves, like people fleeing a flood. The officers moved them along, polite but immovable. The roads are icing, one officer warned. Is anyone sober enough to drive? Noah's father raised a hand reluctantly. I haven't had anything to drink, he said. The officer studied him, then nodded. Then let's go. Celeste stumbled toward me like a sleepwalker waking. Amelia, please, she said, grabbing at the last thread. It's Christmas. You can't put us out into a blizzard. The officer's hand closed around her arm, gentle but firm. That's enough, ma'am. If you keep pushing, you'll be spending the night in county. She sagged. Noah caught her. They gathered their ugly sweaters and their uglier humiliation and filed out under the officer's watch. At the door, Celeste turned, her face a knot of hatred and pleading. I gave her nothing to hold. The door shut with a heavy, satisfying thud. The officers apologized for the trouble and left. Silence stood up and put its hands in its pockets. The fireplace murmured. I watched the patrol car taillights bob away down the hill until they were swallowed by the dark. The adrenaline kicked off and left everything inside me heavy. I sat on the sofa and stared at the carnage on my coffee table, grease-streaked plates, lipstick on napkins, a carcass picked to bone. I lifted the crystal glass Celeste had used, tipped it so the wine inside ran along the rim in a thin red memory, and set it down. Then I added logs to the fire, listened to the soft barking flare of the new flame, and let the questions come like snowflakes. When had it twisted this far? I'd told myself I was acting out of duty, out of respect for our mother's last plea. Watch over Celeste, she's fragile, she'll drift. I watched. I paid. I had forgiven. But maybe I'd built Celeste the very hammock she refused to climb out of. She was clever, always had been. Tears were her currency, blame her tool. Our parents had caved more than once, so did I. When she married Noah, I hoped he'd be ballast. He wasn't. He was a kite in human form floating wherever the wind felt nicer. For years, I'd accepted thank you as tender, but thank you is worthless if it never returns as action. Together, they'd treated my care like a river that would never run dry. Which made Celeste's insult, more if I can use this word, honestly hilarious. Parasitic, she'd called me. It wasn't a slip. It was her worldview, stripped. There was no gratitude beneath it, only entitlement and contempt for the hand that fed. Maybe I'd looked away because I was afraid. Afraid that if I cut the cord, I'd cut my last tie to the family I'd lost. But ties can be chains. That night, I broke one. Morning arrived the way mountain mornings do in winter, blue, crystalline, perfectly indifferent. The world held itself still and knew. I turned off my phone and let the quiet climb inside my lungs. For the first time in years, Christmas belonged to me. I stayed the week at the lodge and rebuilt my version of peace. I cooked slow meals and ate them gracefully, like a person who deserves to be fed. I read novels and watched old films. Snow made the world as soft as breath. Occasionally, my mind ran a loop about Celeste and Noah, but then it didn't. Their future was no longer my problem, and problems you don't own are only stories. On January's first Monday, I drove back down the mountain and into my office. Reports waited, contracts waited, bills waited, eager as terriers. Mid-morning, the property management company called. The manager's voice was cautious. Miss Hart, about the unit leased to Celeste Hayes and Noah Lang. The rent hasn't been paid this month, and we can't reach them. Their deadline was 5 days ago, I said, glancing at the calendar. Proceed according to the lease. Serve the pay or quit and then the eviction. No extensions. A little silence, then a careful understood. That afternoon, an email arrived from the auto finance company. Vehicle repossession completed. There was an attached photo, Celeste's white SUV tilted on a tow truck in the cold, tires catching snow like flour. I deleted the message without ceremony and returned to a spreadsheet about a mixed-use build. A few nights later, my phone rang, an unknown number I nearly ignored. Something made me answer. Amelia, a voice said, thin, frayed, unmistakable. It's me. What do you want, Celeste? How could you? The wail rose like steam. You kicked us out. You took the car. What are we supposed to do? Live within your means, I said. Get jobs, cut expenses. The math is not exotic. We're staying with Noah's parents, and it's unbearable, she snapped. His mother insults me every day, and Noah, he just blames me. You built that house, I said. I didn't. It is your concern, she shouted. You created this situation by cutting us off. Don't you feel any responsibility? I'm not your mother, I said. You're 32. Silence on her end. Then a muffled male voice I recognized. Noah, what did you just say about me? He demanded. Celeste drew in breath. Well, it's true, isn't it? She shot back, and the argument erupted, violent and clumsy. Their voices crashed into each other, rage boiling over into the pure static of two people who had lost their audience. Somewhere in the noise, a glass broke. The line went dead. I set the phone down and felt nothing. The second movement of their collapse had begun. 2 weeks drifted under the spell of small routines. I worked through January like a woman whose life fits her hands. The management company sent updates in the dry language of the legal process. The pay or quit expired. The eviction notice was posted. There were no last-minute payments, no grand apologies. Rumor reached me through a mutual acquaintance that Noah had filed for divorce. There was nothing to divide, no house, no savings, no car. There was only a ledger of borrowed comforts and a pile of shredded pride. I didn't gloat. I didn't mourn. I made tea and watched the light move across my office each afternoon, square by square, wall to wall. Spring edged into the mountains with green shoots and cautious birdsong. I returned to the lodge one weekend to shake out rugs and count blessings. The sky wore a flawless, washed kind of blue. I was on the deck when my phone rang again. Another unfamiliar number. Amelia! The voice was smaller than before, worn thin, like a sweater snagged on too many nails. It's me, Celeste whispered. I'm sorry, I was wrong. Please give me another chance. We're sisters. In front of me, the aspens held their leaves like coins. I let the silence expand until it felt true. Celeste, I said finally, I'll give you one last piece of advice. What? Hope flared like a match. The next time you're in trouble, don't call me. Call the police like you did that night. Maybe this time they'll take your side. Her breath hitched. I ended the call before she could reply and blocked the number. The air was clean again. People imagine that freedom arrives with fireworks. Sometimes it just shows up with keys that belong to you and a phone that doesn't ring. There are no parasites in my life now. Only the quiet I earned. Only the rooms I restored to their rightful owners. Only the kind of peace that sits beside you and says, without drama, this is yours.